Your child is not spoiled. Your child is not bad. Your child is not difficult. Your child has been accidentally trained to be selfish, and you are the one who did it. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you is going to change how you see everything every time your child throws a fit. Every time they say, "That's not fair," every time they refuse to share or talk back or make everything about them, that is not a personality problem. That is a survival program that you helped build, and the good news? What got built can be taken apart. By the end of this video, you are going to know exactly how to do that. Let's start with what the ego actually is, because most people think ego means arrogant. They think ego means the kid who brags, the kid who thinks they're better than everyone. But that's not what ego is. Not really. The ego is the part of your child's brain that is always asking one question: am I safe? Am I enough? Do I matter? That's it. That is all the ego is doing. It is a little alarm system that goes off whenever your child feels like they might lose something: their status, their comfort, their place in the world, their control. So when your child screams because you gave their sibling a bigger piece of cake, that is not greed. That is their ego going off like a fire alarm. It is saying, I might not matter as much. I might not be as loved. I might lose my place. And here is where it gets really important. That alarm goes off louder when it has been fed. When a child has been taught, even by accident, that throwing a fit gets them what they want, the ego learns, okay, this is how I survive, and it does it again, and again, and again. You did not do this on purpose. No parent does, but it happened, and now you need to know how to undo it. So how does ego actually get built in kids? It starts with something called conditional praise. This is when we praise kids for being smart instead of being hardworking, for winning instead of trying, for being the best instead of being better than yesterday. When a kid hears "you are so smart" every time they do something good, their brain starts to build a story. The story says, my value is about being smart. So the moment something gets hard and they might not look smart, the ego panics, and that panic looks like quitting or cheating or crying or blaming the teacher or saying this is stupid and throwing the paper. That is ego, running from anything that threatens the image. Carol Dweck, one of the most respected researchers on children and learning, has spent decades proving this. Kids praised for effort stay in the game. Kids praised for talent. The ego-built kids, they fall apart the moment it gets hard. Because their whole identity is tied to being good, not getting good. This matters because you can change this today, right now. The next time your child does something well, do not say you're so smart. Say you worked hard at that. Say, I saw you keep trying even when it was hard. That one switch, over time, starts to shrink the ego. Because now their identity is tied to effort, not performance, and effort is something they can always control. Now let's talk about the second way ego gets built, and this one is going to sting a little. It is called rescuing. Every time your child faces something uncomfortable and you jump in and fix it, you send one message to their nervous system. The message is, you cannot handle this without me, and the ego hates that. So it builds a wall. It gets defensive, it gets loud, it gets aggressive, because the ego's job is to protect someone who feels fragile. And a child who has been rescued over and over, they feel fragile on the inside, even when they look tough on the outside. Think about it. When your child can't find their shoes and they start screaming, and you run over and find the shoes, what just happened? You solved a problem your child could have solved. You took a small moment of discomfort away, and now your child's brain has one more piece of data that says, I cannot do this alone. I need to make noise to get help. That is ego being fed. So what do you do instead? You stay calm. You say, I know you're frustrated. What do you think you should try first? You do not fix it. You coach them. You say, where did you last have them? And you wait. You let the discomfort sit there, because discomfort is not damage. Discomfort is data. It tells a child, I felt uncomfortable. I figured it out anyway. I am capable. That is the feeling that shrinks the ego, not because the child now thinks less of themselves, but because they no longer need the ego to protect them as much. They have real evidence that they can handle things. Here is the third ego builder, and this one almost nobody talks about. It is called emotional outsourcing. This is when a child has never been taught to deal with their own emotions, so they outsource that job to everyone around them. They make you responsible for their feelings. They act out until you fix the feeling for them. And when you do, ego wins. Here is what this looks like. Your child is upset. They start melting down. You go into full rescue mode, you apologize, you give them what they wanted, you do anything to make the crying stop, peace is restored. But what did your child just learn? I do not need to manage my feelings, I just need to perform them loud enough and someone will fix it. That is emotional outsourcing, and the ego is running the whole show. The fix here is something called co-regulation before independence. This sounds complicated, it is not. It means that before a child can manage their own emotions, they need to feel what a regulated nervous system feels like, from you. So the next time your child loses it, you do not lose it too. You do not beg them to calm down. You do not threaten. You do not lecture. You get close. You breathe slowly. You say, in a low, calm voice, I'm right here. Take a breath with me. You become the calm they need to borrow. And over time, and this is the science, their nervous system learns to self-regulate because they have practiced borrowing your calm so many times that they start to build their own. When a child can manage their own emotions, the ego has less work to do. The ego is loudest in kids who feel most out of control inside. Give a child real emotional tools and the ego quiets down. Let me give you something that you can do today. A 5-step system for pulling ego out by the root. Step 1. Name it without shaming it. When your child acts out of ego, when they're being selfish, demanding, or explosive, do not shame them. Shame does not shrink the ego. It actually makes it bigger, because now the child has to defend themselves on top of everything else. Instead, name what is happening. You say, it looks like you're feeling really scared that you won't get a turn. That makes sense. Let's figure this out. You are naming the fear under the behavior. You are not praising the behavior. You are not punishing the feeling. You are seeing the child under the ego. And that, seeing them, is the one thing that makes the ego relax. Step 2. Give them a job bigger than themselves. The ego thrives when the world is small. When everything is about me, what I want, what I feel, what I need. The fastest way to shrink that world is to make it bigger. Give your child a real responsibility, not a fake one, a real one. Let them be in charge of something that actually matters. Let them make dinner one night, even if it's just sandwiches. Let them be responsible for the family pet. Let them be the one who checks on grandma. When a child is responsible for someone else, something shifts. The brain starts to produce oxytocin, the connection chemical. And ego cannot coexist at full strength with genuine connection. It is biologically impossible. You cannot truly care about another living thing and stay fully ego-driven at the same time. This is why kids who grow up with real responsibilities, kids on farms, kids who help care for siblings, kids who contribute to the actual functioning of a household tend to show less ego-driven behavior. They are too plugged into something real to stay inside themselves. Step 3. Stop negotiating with ego. This one is hard, because it means you have to hold a line. When your child is in full ego mode, demanding, screaming, refusing, that is not the moment for discussion. The ego does not negotiate in good faith. It just wants to win. So when you engage in a back and forth during a meltdown, you are playing a game, the ego will always win, because the ego does not care about logic. It cares about control. What do you do instead? You set the limit. You say it once. You say it calm. That is not going to happen. I love you, and I'm not going to argue about this. And then you go quiet, not cold, not mean, but firm, warm and firm at the same time. This is the hardest thing for most parents, because the silence feels like abandonment. It does not feel like love, but here is what it actually communicates to your child's nervous system. I am the safe wall. I will not be moved. And you are safe because of that. A child who can feel a safe, firm wall around them, they stop needing to push so hard. The ego starts to settle because there is nothing left to fight. Step 4. Teach gratitude like a practice, not a politeness. Most parents teach gratitude like a manners thing. Say thank you, write your thank you notes, be grateful, but that is not gratitude. That is performance. Real gratitude is a daily brain exercise, and it is one of the most powerful ego reducers in existence. Here is why. The ego runs on lack. It is always focused on what is missing, what is not fair, what someone else has. Gratitude runs on abundance. It forces the brain to look at what is here, what is good, and you cannot be in both places at the same time. Every night at dinner or at bedtime, ask your child one question. What is one thing that happened today that you are glad happened? Not one thing that made you happy, not one thing you liked. One thing you are glad happened. That small shift in wording makes the brain reach for meaning instead of just pleasure. Do this every day for 30 days and watch what happens. Your child will start catching themselves in moments of ego, and sometimes, on their own, with no prompting, they will pull themselves back. Because their brain has been trained through repetition to look for something to be grateful for instead of something to complain about. Step 5. Model what a small ego looks like. This one is the most powerful, and the one most parents skip. Your child is watching everything you do, everything. They are watching how you handle being wrong. They are watching how you react when someone cuts you off in traffic. They are watching what you do when you don't get what you want. They are watching whether you say sorry when you mess up, or whether you make excuses. If you want your child to have a small ego, you have to show them what that looks like. That means saying, "I was wrong" in front of your child. Even when it is hard, especially when it is hard. It means saying, "I don't know," instead of pretending. It means letting your child see you lose gracefully. It means letting them see you ask for help. Because a child who grows up watching a parent with a small ego, one who is confident but not defensive, firm but not rigid, honest and not ashamed, that child builds their identity on something real, not on the fragile fiction that the ego tries to construct. You are the most powerful anti-ego force in your child's life, not the school, not the church, not their friends, you, because you are the mirror they look into first and longest. Let me bring this all together. Your child is not the enemy. Their ego is not evil. The ego is doing exactly what it was built to do. Protect a child who, somewhere along the way, learned that the world was not safe enough to show up in without armor. Your job is not to destroy that armor. Your job is to make your child feel safe enough that they do not need it. You do that by naming feelings without shaming them, by letting your child struggle through hard things instead of rescuing them every time, by becoming the calm in their storm through co-regulation, by giving them real responsibilities that connect them to something bigger, by holding your limits with warmth and firmness at the same time, by teaching real gratitude as a brain exercise, by living with a small ego yourself and letting them see it. None of this is a one-time fix. This is a daily practice, a long game. But every single one of these steps, applied consistently, changes the structure of how your child sees themselves and the world. And a child who does not need the ego to survive, that child can be genuinely kind, genuinely curious, genuinely generous, not because you forced it, because they grew into it. That is the child underneath the ego. And they have been there the whole time, waiting for you to help them come out. Now you know how. Go do the work.